yeah, police story, the lie.
For decades, the Cannonball Run has been a cult favorite, an outrageous, high-speed comedy packed with wild stunts and unforgettable stars.
I saved that woman's dog.
But hidden behind the laughs and chaos was something most fans completely missed. Now, after all these years, Jackie Chan is finally opening up and revealing what most fans never figured out.
How many action stars still survive right now? Gone.
Jackie Chan's revelation might change how we see the film forever. And if you thought you knew everything about the Cannonball Run, well, think again. Because Jackie just dropped a bomb no one saw coming. Join us in this video as we dive into the details. Jackie Chan's untold truth about the Cannonball Run, the role that changed everything. Jackie Chan didn't have a lot of screen time in the Cannonball Run, but he made every second count. He treated the role like a live audition, bouncing off walls, diving through windows, and throwing razor-sharp punches that left even seasoned editors stunned. Some of his best moves never made it to the final cut, not because they weren't good, but because they were too intense for a light-hearted comedy. The American censors weren't sure what to do with a martial artist moving like a blur in the middle of a goofy car chase film. And Jackie? He was frustrated. He wanted to show the world what he could really do. But even in small doses, he left a mark. Those few high-energy scenes, censored or not, introduced Jackie Chan to American audiences. He wasn't the star of the show yet, but that seed had been planted. Then came the twist. Just when most films would roll the credits and call it a day, the Cannonball Run kept going. A blooper reel played over the end credits, full of flubbed lines, missed stunts, and actors bursting out in laughter. It was messy, it was hilarious, and it felt real. Jackie was blown away by it. Inspired even. So much so that he made bloopers a signature part of his own films, starting with Dragon Lord in 1982. Since then, the pain, the missteps, the behind-the-scenes laughter, they've all become part of the Jackie Chan experience. And it all started here, with this chaotic comedy. Still, there was one thing that didn't sit right. Jackie was proud to make his American debut, but in the movie, his character was listed as Japanese. He played a silent, tech-savvy, ninja-type racer, complete with flashy gadgets and martial arts finesse. But Jackie Chan is Chinese, and that mattered deeply to him. He later called the mix-up lazy and disrespectful. Even so, he threw himself into the role with full energy. He nailed every stunt, every punch, every bit of physical comedy without saying much at all. Behind the scenes, though, Jackie was already dreaming bigger. He wanted to break through on his own terms. And even if Hollywood didn't fully understand who he was yet, he did. He was just getting started. But where did this wild ride really begin? And why? Keep watching to find out. The wild, illegal race that started it all. Before the Cannonball Run made people laugh, it made police departments across the country furious. Back in 1971, a gutsy automotive journalist named Brock Yates and legendary race car driver Dan Gurney jumped into a souped-up Dodge van and tore across America, from New York to Los Angeles, in just 35 hours and 54 minutes. No permits, no permission, just raw speed and a map. They called it the Cannonball Baker's Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash. A mouthful, sure, but it was a bold tribute to Irwin Cannonball Baker, the cross-country racing pioneer who made over 140 U.S. runs in the early 90s. But this wasn't just a thrill ride, it was a protest. Yates wanted to push back against rising speed limits, tighter safety rules, and what he saw as government overreach on the open road. The race was his way of flipping the bird to the system. Between 1971 and 1979, 5 of these illegal Cannonball Runs took place. The vehicles? Everything from Ferraris and motorcycles to ambulances and even hearses. Some drivers wore disguises. Others carried fake IDs and badges to dodge trouble. It was dangerous, wild, and totally against the law. But that was part of the point. Every second counted, and they risked everything to shave minutes off their time. And Brock Yates still wasn't finished. He teamed up with his friend Hal Needham, a stuntman turned director, and together they turned the real-life madness into a movie. The Cannonball Run didn't just take inspiration from the race. It was the race, only now it starred Hollywood legends instead of speed-obsessed daredevils. And once the cameras started rolling, the chaos shifted gears and got even faster. Aside from Jackie Chan's revelation, there are other weird facts you never knew about the Cannonball Run. Keep watching to find out what they are. The drunk priests who saved the movie. Sammy Davis Jr. lit up the screen in the Cannonball Run as the wisecracking priest with a gambling habit and a swagger that didn't quit. But here's the twist. He almost never played the role. The character, hilariously named Fenderbaum, was originally written for insult comedy legend Don Rickles. His timing was perfect for the film's off-the-rails energy, and everything seemed set. He'd accepted, been cast, and was ready to go. Then he disappeared. To this day, no one's quite sure why. Some blame scheduling conflicts, others whisper about creative clashes. Whatever the reason, Rickles bailed last minute. The producers panicked, the clock was ticking, and then Sammy Davis Jr. stepped in. Just like that, the role changed forever. What Sammy brought wasn't just acting, it was attitude. He gave the priest a sparkle of sin and a dash of charm, especially when paired with Dean Martin's boozy one-liners. The two had real chemistry, the kind you can't fake. In fact, they didn't fake much at all. Most of the time, they weren't even acting. Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. were, by all accounts, drunk for much of the shoot. They showed up late, flubbed lines, and improvised entire scenes while sipping cocktails in full priest outfits. Director Hal Needham didn't fight it. He rolled with it. In one scene, Sammy slurred a prayer so badly they had to dub over it later. Dean, he just laughed and poured another drink. And somehow, it worked. They weren't characters, they were the Rat Pack, straight up. And in a film powered by chaos, mischief, and madness, Dean and Sammy didn't just belong, they defined it. Communion wine and all. From holy hijinks to Hollywood shakeups, how did plans change? Let's find out. From Steve McQueen's dream to Bert Reynolds' regret. The Cannonball Run wasn't always meant to be a wild comedy filled with drunken priests and flying punches. At first, it was pitched as a high-octane action film, and legendary actor Steve McQueen was supposed to be the star. The tone? Gritty and intense, with racing scenes that would have been the heart-pounding center of the story. It was set to be a serious tribute to raw speed and risk. But fate had other plans. In 1980, Steve McQueen passed away before the project could get off the ground. With their leading man gone, the filmmakers pivoted. The tone shifted, the cast changed, and suddenly, the Cannonball Run morphed from a straight-laced action film into a madcap comedy with Burt Reynolds at the wheel. Reynolds took on the role of J.J. McClure, and he didn't come cheap. He was paid a whopping $5 million at the time, the highest salary any actor had ever received for a single movie. But Reynolds wasn't just a big name, he was the name. Fresh off hits like Smokey and The Bandit and Deliverance, he was the king of the box office. Still, the payday didn't buy him happiness. Years later, Reynolds openly admitted he regretted doing the film. He said he didn't enjoy it, didn't love the script, and only signed on because his close friend, director Hal Needham, asked him to, and because the paycheck was too good to pass up. "I did it for all the wrong reasons," he confessed. The irony? The film became a cult classic. But for Reynolds, the Cannonball Run was never about passion. It was a pit stop he wished he'd skipped. How did the bond of the fans' favorite duo steal the scenes? Stay tuned to find out. Bert and Dom, comedy in overdrive. In the Cannonball Run, Burt Reynolds brought his signature swagger to the role of J.J. McClure, a fast-talking, smooth-driving rebel with a secret weapon, a souped-up Dodge ambulance, and a partner just as wild. That partner? Victor Prinzim, played by the unstoppable Dom DeLuise. Together, they weren't just racers, they were the heart of the film's comedy, bouncing between banter, disguises, and barely contained chaos. Reynolds was already a household name by then. He'd built his early career on rugged TV roles in shows like Gunsmoke, Riverboat, and Hawk, carving out a space as Hollywood's go-to tough guy. But his big screen rise came with movies like Navajo Joe and Sam Whiskey. Then came Deliverance in 1972, a gritty, unforgettable performance that turned Reynolds into a bona fide star. But it was in the mid-1970s that audiences discovered another side of him, his comedic timing. Films like Smokey and the Bandit in 1907, also directed by Hal Needham, let Reynolds loosen up and lean into laughs. And it worked. Enter Dom DeLuise, larger than life and hilarious at every turn. His chemistry with Reynolds was electric, and by the time they reunited in Smokey and the Bandit 2, fans knew they were watching comedy gold. In the Cannonball Run, their dynamic kept the story speeding along, not just with horsepower, but with punchlines. Whether playing paramedics or pulling pranks, Bert and Dom weren't just racing for the finish. They were stealing every scene along the way. But how did Dom carry his role in the Cannonball Run? Let's find out. Captain Chaos steps in Dom. DeLuise didn't just play Victor Prinzim in the Cannonball Run. He became the movie's wild card. As if Victor wasn't quirky enough, DeLuise gave him an alter ego, the over-the-top, cape-wearing, delusionally heroic Captain Chaos. 1 minute, Victor's a nervous wreck, second-guessing himself. The next, he's transformed, striking poses, barking orders, and charging into trouble like a bargain bin superhero. Captain Chaos wasn't just a joke. He was a character within a character, a goofy, exaggerated mask for Victor's deepest wish, to be brave. Of course, this hero usually made things worse. He'd crash into the action with grand gestures and no plan, leaving chaos, pun intended, in his wake. But that was the magic of DeLuise. With just a line, a look, or a wild entrance, he could turn any scene into a laugh-out-loud moment. His talent wasn't in overacting, it was in knowing exactly how far to push a gag. And in a movie already bursting with mayhem, Captain Chaos somehow stole the spotlight. So, what really went wrong behind the scenes? Keep watching to find out. Crashes, controversies, and the bond that broke the rules behind the laughs and wild stunts of the Cannonball Run was a much darker reality. Not every risk ended in comedy. During one of the film's high-speed sequences involving an Aston Martin, stuntwoman Heidi Von Beltz was seriously injured. The car, shockingly, had no seatbelts installed. When it slammed into a parked truck, Von Beltz was left paralyzed. What followed was a long legal battle, not just for justice, but for change. Her case made waves in the industry. As a result, seatbelts became mandatory in all stunt vehicles, and the Directors Guild put its foot down, banning directors from making on-the-spot stunt changes during filming. Heidi's accident became a turning point, reminding Hollywood that behind the spectacle, real people were putting their lives on the line. Doctors didn't expect her to survive more than a few months, but Heidi wasn't finished fighting. She lived for more than 3 decades after the accident, outlasting every grim prediction. She passed away on October 28, 2015, in Tarzana, California. A quiet warrior whose story remains a stark reminder of the risks behind the stunts we often take for granted on screen. Strangely enough, she shared a birthday with Christopher Reeve, another public figure who faced life as a quadriplegic with courage and grace. While most fans remember Cannonball Run 2, far fewer know about the unofficial third entry in the franchise, Speed Zone. Also known as Cannonball Run 3, Cannonball Fever, Speed Zone Fever, and One for the Money, depending on where you saw it. The 1989 film had almost nothing to do with the originals, except for Jamie Farr returning as the over-the-top Sheikh Abdul Ben Falafel. Despite having a stacked cast, including John Candy, Eugene Levy, and Brooke Shields, Speed Zone was a total misfire. Critics hated it, audiences ignored it, and it vanished almost as fast as the cars in it. But if there's one performance that stuck with fans from the original Cannonball Run, it was Roger Moore's. He played Seymour Goldfarb Jr., a wealthy playboy who thinks he's James Bond. He even drives an Aston Martin and drops one-liners straight out of 007's playbook. Moore had a blast spoofing himself, but the real Bond producers? Not amused. After his appearance, they reportedly updated contracts to prevent any future Bond actors from parodying the character in other films. A comedy about rule breakers ended up setting some rules of its own. Behind the chaos were real schemes, fake roles, and surprise stars. Real tricks, fake names, and famous faces. The wild, over-the-top antics in the Cannonball Run weren't just made for laughs. They were ripped straight from the real-life Cannonball Baker Trophy Dash. Many of the movie's craziest tactics were actually used by drivers trying to outsmart the law during the original illegal races across America. Take the ambulance trick, for example. In the real race, Brock Yates and his crew actually used a souped-up ambulance to avoid getting pulled over. Who would stop an emergency vehicle? The plan worked, and it made its way into the film, with Bert Reynolds and Dom DeLuise using the exact same disguise. And those two fake priests played by Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin? Yep, that was real too. One team in the actual race dressed as clergy, just to fool the highway patrol. The movie didn't even have to stretch the truth. Reality was already this absurd. And then there were the women in jumpsuits. During the real race, a team of female drivers used their looks and charm to breeze past law enforcement. That tactic inspired the characters played by Adrienne Barbeau and Tara Buckman, whose skin-tight racing suits became one of the film's most memorable and controversial visuals. But the Cannonball Run didn't just borrow from real life, it loaded the screen with cameos. Peter Fonda, the icon from Easy Rider, shows up briefly as a Hell's Angel biker in one of the film's chaotic brawls. Brock Yates, the man behind the original race, appears as the no-nonsense official who lays down the rules at the starting line. And director Hal Needham even pops up as an EMT in the very ambulance he helped dream up for the story. In a film where almost everything felt improvised and outrageous, it turns out that a surprising amount of it was real. Truth, once again, proved stranger and funnier than fiction. When the race ended on screen, it sped into arcades, from big screen to arcade dreams. For some fans, the Cannonball Run wasn't just a movie. It was a feeling, the thrill of speed, the freedom of the open road, the idea that rules were meant to be bent or broken entirely. And years later, that feeling was reborn, this time in pixels and plastic steering wheels. In 1986, Japanese game designer Yu Suzuki watched the Cannonball Run and saw more than comedy or cars. He saw something deeper, the dream of escape. Inspired by that spirit, he created Outrun, an arcade game that wasn't about winning, it was about going. There were no enemies, no laps, no time to waste, just a red Ferrari, a beautiful passenger beside you, and miles of open highway stretching toward the horizon. The sky changed, the music pumped through the speakers, and the road kept winding forward. You didn't need a map or instructions, you just drove. For anyone who ever slipped into that arcade cabinet and gripped the plastic wheel, it wasn't just a game, it was freedom. And the seed of that freedom? It was planted by a chaotic American comedy where speed, rebellion, and ridiculousness ruled the screen. From Hollywood to the arcade, the Cannonball Run kept moving, straight into pop culture legend. The Cannonball Run made millions, broke records, but critics wanted it wrecked. Why? Let's find out. A smash hit and a critical disaster. The Cannonball Run didn't just cross the finish line, it blew past it. With over $160 million in global box office earnings, it became one of the top-grossing comedies of 1981. On a budget of just $18 million, the return was massive. It was the sixth biggest film of the year, proving that sometimes audiences just want to have a good time. Critics be damned. And the critics? They really weren't kind. Roger Ebert, one of the most respected voices in film, gave the movie just half a star. He called it an abdication of artistic responsibility at the lowest possible level of ambition. Translation: he didn't just think it was bad. He thought no one involved even tried to make it good. But that was the paradox of the Cannonball Run. It wasn't polished. It wasn't high art. It was chaotic, ridiculous, and fueled by pure energy. And while the critics rolled their eyes, moviegoers couldn't stop laughing. The film may have been critically totaled, but at the box office, it left everything else in the dust. Audiences loved the chaos, but what happened to its angel? Stay tuned to find out. Farrah Fawcett, From Angel to Cannonball. In the Cannonball Run, Farrah Fawcett played Pamela Glover, a dreamy mix of photographer, environmentalist, and accidental outlaw. Introduced as the uptight partner of Mr. Foyt, a man determined to shut down the illegal race, Pamela quickly becomes swept up in the chaos. And by the end, she's not just on board, she's riding shotgun with Bert Reynolds' JJ, who affectionately calls her Beauty, a nickname that, to most viewers, felt spot on. By the time she joined the cast, Fawcett was already a household name. She'd made her mark as a model and television star, best known for Charlie's Angels and The $6 Million Man. Her iconic smile and feathered hair had become cultural staples, but her performance in the Cannonball Run didn't win everyone over. Despite the film's blockbuster success, Fawcett was nominated for a Razzie Award for Worst Supporting Actress. Critics weren't impressed with her delivery, and the film didn't ask much of her beyond looking good and going along for the ride. Even so, she brought a certain charm and star power that helped the film appeal to a wider audience. Was it her best role? Probably not, but it didn't matter. In a movie packed with mayhem and misfits, Fawcett held her own and looked effortlessly iconic doing it. Today, Warner Brothers owns the rights to the Cannonball Run, and for years, there's been talk of a remake. But no matter how flashy the reboot might be, one thing is certain: there will never be another cast like the original. That mix of chaos, charisma, and combustible talent, it was lightning in a bottle. And for all its comedy and mayhem, the film carries the weight of a real-life cost. So, where are the cast of the Cannonball Run now? Where did they all go? Let's find out. Where the stars drove off to the Cannonball Run wasn't just a movie. It was a last hurrah for some of Hollywood's biggest icons. Critics may have dismissed it, but audiences turned it into a box office smash. Behind the wheel were stars from Hollywood's golden age, many of whom made Cannonball one of their final rides. Burt Reynolds, always the leading man, had more offers than he could accept. He even turned down roles that went on to win Oscars. But fame came with a price. Lavish spending and a messy divorce forced him into bankruptcy in the 90s. Still, he rebounded with memorable roles in Boogie Nights, The Longest Yard remake, and more. Though his personal life was a roller coaster, with brief marriages, famous romances, his bond with adopted son Quentin was constant. Burt passed away in 2018, but not before earning a Lifetime Achievement Award and a well-deserved place in film history. Roger Moore, the suave James Bond, eased out of acting after hanging up the tux in 1985. While he joked he couldn't get a job, he focused on humanitarian work, becoming a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. Married 4 times, his final years were spent with wife Kiki Tholstrup. He passed in 2017, remembered as both a spy and a gentleman. Farrah Fawcett left behind the pin-up image and took on tougher roles after Cannonball, earning respect for performances in The Burning Bed and The Apostle. Her personal life was marked by ups and downs, divorce, domestic violence, a long love story with Ryan O'Neal, and a son, Redmond. She reunited with O'Neal in her final years before losing her battle with cancer in 2009 at just 62. Dom DeLuise was the heart and chaos of the Cannonball Run, and he carried that same joy into a career filled with Mel Brooks comedies and even opera performances. Yes, opera. Dom had a recurring comedic role in Die Fledermaus at New York's Metropolitan Opera House, showing off surprising range. He married fellow actor Carol Arthur in 1965, and the two raised 3 sons together. Their marriage lasted until his passing in 2009. The Cannonball Run and its sequel were Dom's last film appearances, a fittingly wild and beloved send-off. Dean Martin, the ever-cool crooner, continues to echo through time with timeless hits like That's Amore and You're Nobody Till Someone Loves You. Though Cannonball marked the twilight of his film career, his voice still pours from speakers across generations. He married 3 times and fathered 8 children before passing away in 1995, but his legacy, like his music, never misses a beat. Jack Elam didn't start as an actor. He was an accountant who once traded his services for a small film role. That gamble paid off. With his off-kilter eye, the result of a childhood accident, Jack carved out a niche playing gangsters, gunslingers, and grizzled outlaws. Off-screen, though, he was known for his warmth and humor. After losing his first wife, he found love again and stayed with his second wife until his death in 2003. Sammy Davis Jr. was more than a showman. He was a pioneer. Raised by a vaudeville father and trained in the spotlight from a young age, Sammy broke racial barriers with the Rat Pack and pushed for desegregation in clubs across the country. The Cannonball Run was one of his final films. He passed in 1990, leaving behind a legacy of talent, resilience, and social change. Adrienne Barbeau didn't slow down after Cannonball. Dubbed the B-movie queen, she became a regular face on TV screens, while also navigating a rich personal life. She married Billy Van Zandt in 1992, and at age 51 gave birth to twins. Her memoir, There Are Worse Things I Could Do, gave fans a peek behind the curtain, and she followed it up with a novel, Vampires of Hollywood, proving she's still full of surprises. Terry Bradshaw, the NFL Hall of Famer with a golden arm and a golden sense of humor, retired from football just 2 years after the Cannonball Run hit theaters. But he never really left the spotlight. He's since popped up in everything from sitcoms to the 2006 romantic comedy Failure to Launch. A devout Christian, Terry's personal life has had its challenges. 3 marriages, all ending in divorce. But he's a proud father to 2 daughters from his 3rd wife, Charlotte. When Bruce Lee passed in 1973, the world waited for a replacement. But Jackie Chan had other plans. Refusing to mimic Lee's stoic intensity, Jackie infused martial arts with slapstick comedy and stunts that left audiences stunned and him bruised. The Cannonball Run gave him his 2nd shot in Hollywood, and from there, his legend only grew. Married to Feng Zhao Lin since 1982, Jackie has 1 child and a deep commitment to philanthropy. He funds schools, supports relief efforts, and serves as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, all while continuing to light up screens with his one-of-a-kind energy. Bert Convy was best known as a charming game show host and actor. After the Cannonball Run, he kept working steadily in television. But in 1990, Bert collapsed unexpectedly and was diagnosed with a brain tumor. He began divorce proceedings from his wife of nearly 3 decades, Ann Anderson, and married his new love, Catherine Hills, just 5 months before passing in 1991. It was a bittersweet end to a charismatic career. Jamie Farr, who made a name for himself as the unforgettable Corporal Klinger on MASH, brought a different kind of flair to the Cannonball Run as an eccentric sheik. Born Jamil Farrah in Ohio, Jamie was one of only 2 MASH cast members who actually served in the military. He's had a remarkably steady career, continuing to appear in TV shows and films long after Cannonball. A devoted husband to Joy Ann Richards and father of 2, Jamie even had an LPGA golf tournament named in his honor. Peter Fonda's story reads like a Hollywood novel. Son of Henry, brother of Jane, Peter carved out his own place in cinematic history. After a bumpy start, including an arrest for anti-war protesting, he co-wrote and starred in Easy Rider, a film that made him a symbol of 1960s rebellion. In the Cannonball Run, he briefly reprised his biker persona, adding another layer to his legacy. Peter's career later rebounded with critical hits like Uli's Gold. which earned him an Oscar nomination. He kept acting right up to the end, appearing in multiple films until his passing in 2019. He was survived by his wife, Portia, and his 2 children from his first marriage. These stars helped make the Cannonball Run unforgettable. And while the race may have ended, their stories keep rolling on. What are your thoughts on Jackie's revelation? And do you have anything facts to add? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.